Marcelo into Hullet now. Surely one last chance. One last bite at the cherry here in Amsterdam. Ronaldo through to Hullet. Oh, what an ending here in Amsterdam.
If that's not poetic justice, I don't know what is. Danuso knocked out Ryan on the Xbox, and this time Boras knocked out. It's Italy's finest in Principe.
What is going on? Welcome back to a brand new FUT Champions podcast number 3 of FIFA 19. As always, weekly podcast here, whether you're watching, whether you're listening to on our podcast website or over on YouTube. I hope you are enjoying the podcast. If you're new around here, thank you for coming by. If you're returning back from a previous podcast, thank you very much. We really do appreciate all the support that we have had so far since relaunching our podcast that I think has gone down well. It's safe to say we're trying to cover as much FIFA esports content as we can every single week. And hopefully as we slowly get busier and busier, as we start getting into these FUT Champions Cups and the Global Series, we'll have even more to talk about. You could probably guess as well that I'm a little bit under the weather at the moment. It's normally the man next to me I'm about to introduce that isn't feeling too well. However, today it is me. And speaking of that man, Richard Buckley, hello. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm in great spirits, to be honest, Brandon. I'm feeling well. I'm here for the FUT Champs podcast, and another weekend goes by, another set of qualifiers go by. But we actually we met up before the FUT Champs podcast, the three of us, and that was at the Esports Awards. Kojo, did you have a good time?
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Shout out to you guys and to Digital Sports Management for allowing me a spot at their table. I've always wanted to go, to be honest, and I've been a viewer for the past 2 years, so it was nice to finally be there and be there with some nominees as well.
And of course, if you don't know what the Esports Awards are, it's basically a night of celebrating esports from FIFA to League of Legends to Call of Duty, all these major titles, the traditional ones, the newer esports like the Overwatches, the Fortnites, and you could say even FIFA in there. A number of awards, streaming platforms, broadcaster of the year, just a number of big awards for to basically just recognise the best talented people and those that do so much for our esport. But as we said, we were all there. It was a great night. We and Richard, we were up for the broadcaster of the year. We didn't win, however, another guy did. Maven, a very talented and established Call of Duty commentator, and again, it was a pleasure to be nominated for that one. However, Fnatic did win something, didn't they, Colin?
Yeah, we did. Bwipo won Rookie of the Year, who was our top laner for our League of Legends team, which was pretty nice. And then we got third place in the Organization of the Year and the Team of the Year. The Organization of the Year was actually Cloud9, which is pretty fair. They just won the Rocket League Championship Series and have won a number of big tournaments this year in other major esports. So yeah, it was nice. It was a nice night. I think we were pretty happy to get at least Rookie of the Year after our incredible League of Legends run this year. But FIFA did all right as well. We had, I think, 6 total nominations across all the categories, with the likes of MS Dasari being nominated and winning, Console Player of the Year, and then Tex being nominated for Console Rookie of the Year. So it was nice to see FIFA kind of get some recognition in the categories as well as an esport.
Yeah, on my feet when Dasari won. Very good as well to catch up with people and meet a lot of people you're not usually meet in the FIFA stratosphere. You could say people who massive in other esports, Golden Boy, Shocks. Had a nice little chat with Thorin as well, talking about the growth of FIFA esports. So I think whenever you get an event like this, it's always important to chat to other people who don't. Like, we live in this world. We live in this sort of FIFA bubble, you could say. So it's always nice to talk to other people from around FIFA, tell them about the growth. And I think one of the most like shocking things, really, it took me back a little bit, was that people like Maven, people like Golden Boy, like, they knew who me and Brandon were. They were like, "Oh, you're the duo." So that was very nice. For people to actually know who we were a little bit.
And it was funny as well because obviously, for no one knew, we went in as a duo. We went in, as a team. We didn't go in, solo. Vote for Brown and vote for Richie. Went into the team. I was very thankful to get that nomination, as we said. And as Richard was saying, it was great just for FIFA to get a lot of good press. A lot of people saying, FIFA's done so well over the last year, last 18, 24 months. The E-Premier League, that looks so exciting. And something else that we might as well talk about is some news that came out literally like the other day. I think we were on the way to the Gfinity, I believe, at the time. And then
on the Friday, yeah.
Yeah, it just came out of the blue. The eCHAMPIONS League. Wow.
Yes, so pretty much the eCHAMPIONS League, it's going to add to the massive list of global events and competitions on the road to the FIFA 19 E-World Cup next summer. Few bullet points to take away from it. It's only on PlayStation 4, and you'll compete in knockouts over the 2nd and 3rd of March with the top 64 players advancing to a live qualified event in the back end of April 26th to 27th. We'll then take only 8 players from that event, and then you'll go to the Champions League final, May the 31st. That's the eChampions League final. It's going to be played one day before the official Champions League final on the 1st of June, creating sort of like this massive celebration of digital and traditional football. Couple of things in game. It's a draft, and you're only allowed to draft the Champions League players who are in the group stage and further. That's it, the grand final. So the 8 players are going to build a squad from Champions League drafts. The winner is going to take home $100,000, which is pretty mad, and probably the last opportunity to get pro points before the playoffs, which is 850 Global Series points.
And just before I come to Colin to talk about this announcement, it must be said and repeated again and again, if you didn't sign up by the 31st of October to like FUTchampions.com, I believe it was, before getting those 27 wins, which gets you verified, FUT Champions verified, then you can start playing in all these tournaments, the LQEs, the FUT Champions Cups, tournaments like the eChampions League when it comes round, the ePremier League. Obviously, you won't be able to compete and you won't be able to get those all-important points for the rankings, which have been announced, but what we want to know really, Colin, is I can imagine, what was the reaction like of your players when they heard that?
Yeah, it was really nice. I think the players were, when we saw a list of events, right, there was I think it was literally called like the Sony PlayStation 4 qualifying event, but it was like different from the other LQEs, right? It had this massive prize pool listed up, which is $280,000 total, and $100,000 going to first place, which is the largest single prize for any event so far that EA has done, or at least in FIFA 19. It'll be the biggest one, probably outside of Worlds. But yeah, I think it's really exciting to finally see the Champions League get involved. Obviously, with the Premier League getting involved, I think it was just everyone knew it was kind of a matter of time before the Champions League came in as well, and it's really exciting. The fact though that it is only on PlayStation 4, I know upset a couple of the Xbox players, which is to be expected, right? But at this point, it's pretty clear that Sony's going pretty hard into FIFA Esports. So I think that you might actually see players switching over, because I think, Richard, you asked me the question last week about players possibly switching. I think this might be the kind of thing that might actually convince a few players to switch over, or at the very least to switch over for next season for FIFA 20. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how people kind of react, and how the Xbox competitive ecosystem kind of changes, what with the increased investment from Sony.
So after this announcement, I saw a little bit of backlash on Twitter from a lot of Xbox players saying, if you'd have told us beforehand that this were the sort of tournaments we're going to get on the PlayStation 4, that were going to be PlayStation 4 exclusive, that we would have moved across. I think I saw FUTWIZ Tom say there was an article that EA released all the way back when we were building up to the hype for FIFA 19, and it said there's going to be qualifiers on the PlayStation 4 that are only available on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Obviously, nobody knew that they were going to be of this magnitude. One thing that came to my mind is Sony didn't get the rights to the Champions League. FIFA and EA got the rights to the Champions League and the Europa League. So could we see a Europa League tournament only taking place on the Xbox maybe? Champions League goes to the PS4, Europa League goes to the Xbox. That was something that came into my mind straight away.
Yeah, I definitely think there's potential for that, because you've also seen kind of the different SBCs they've been doing, right, for the Champions League and the Premier, or for the Champions League and the Europa League. So it definitely wouldn't surprise me to see kind of an individual event around that as well, because I think it's always been kind of a challenge for them marketing wise around the Europa League to football fans. So this might be another way to kind of drive more traffic and more attention to the Europa League, which I think is what a lot of those cards have done as well, right? Because now you're actually paying attention if Jonathan Tah, and his team make it to the next round.
Yeah, I think as well. I think it also silences a lot of the criticism that you had. They get this event, why don't we get it? Even if it's for, maybe you could say, less prize money or less points, just for them to have something, because a lot of people disregard the Europa League as being smaller than the Champions League, so it would make sense logically for that to be less. Also, one thing that everyone needs to take into consideration is that the PS4 and the Xbox leaderboards for points are completely different. So, for example, Dito winning that event and getting 850 points wouldn't affect Tex winning the Europa League and getting only 500 points. That wouldn't play into consideration whatsoever. So I think that could be something definitely going forward that you see. That's just from my brain. That I've not seen a lot of other people speak about that, but thinking about it, it would make sense for that to happen with, as Colin said, the SBCs in the game recently, the hype building towards the Europa League, and who knows, it could even be at the Europa League location of the final.
I think if you see one more quick thing is, I think that because the qualifiers for this will probably just be by themselves, right, on one weekend, and there won't be another conflicting qualifier, you might see people like, your Gorillas that can afford both teams might actually go in and play the PlayStation side as well. Just because they have the ability to, just for the prize money and for the prestige of playing in the eCHAMPIONS League as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of overlap from Xbox players that already have existing accounts or have the financial backing, I guess, to kind of actually get into that side.
Well, we did see #Harry do that for that, the Continental Cup, obviously before any of those qualifiers. A while back. But I think it's quite funny, how we used to, Xbox was kind of, maybe a few years ago, you could say, more of the home for esports FIFA, just because I can remember back at those Gfinity Play Like a Legend tournaments, which obviously Grilla was winning them all. It was only for Xbox at the time, and even myself, even as a casual player, maybe at one point wanted to try and be a pro. I went over to Xbox because of the icons or the legends back then. Yeah,
all on Xbox. It was pretty much like Xbox exclusive, a lot of it.
It was just Xbox. And then obviously as we moved on with the Berlin FUT Championship Series, and as we moved on that way, obviously it started to move. And this year, as you saw, it was advertised this $100,000 event. Would be on PlayStation. Of course, there's still the FUT Champions Cups on both sides, the license qualifiers on both sides, and it is going to bring up some of those questions of, do I move over? What do I do? But speaking of the FUT Champions Cup 2, that was decided, the 64 players who would be there last weekend. Of course, when this podcast comes out, there'll be another qualifier happening that we will come on to a little bit later, but those 64 players that have made the cut, some of the names include the likes of Rafsu, who's pretty much made everything so far this year that he's been able to on Xbox. F2 Tex, he's in there. MS Dasari, the console player of the year that we spoke about. Tim Latka, Megabit. And then over on the PlayStation side, North Aggie, he's been incredible. Any other names, Richard, that you can see?
Yeah, there's 5 names for me that stand out, and that's Tex, Mobamyang, Megabit, Aggie, and Nicholas. They're 5 players who are going to be featuring FUT Champs Cup 1 and FUT Champs Cup 2. Got a question for Colin, as a team owner who looks at additions to the roster, etc. Do you believe that Nicholas for Basel is potentially, I'm going to say, the best signing ever for an esports org or football club in FIFA?
Potentially. I think that they probably, it depends on what the move is, right? If the move is from a competitive standpoint, then potentially. But then you look at someone like MS Dasari, who also comes out of a different region, is a current world champion, and you can probably expect similar results from in the future. I would say that he's kind of been to the mountaintop, right? and he's won the whole thing before. So I think that Rogue signing of him might be better. But as a whole roster, I think that Basel's done a really good job with Stranger and Nicholas, especially with how strong both of them have seemed thus far. Of course, it's kind of hard to say that, right? Because we haven't really had a true LAN on both sides with all the players as well. Because I know a lot of players didn't even register in time for the Continental Cup, or they didn't qualify, or whereas the first FUT Champions Cup is going to be kind of the first time we get to see all of these players kind of all together again, with the likes of all these players from the different regions that we don't get to see compete against each other in rivals all the time, for example. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how he kind of performs this year, because I feel like the game actually doesn't play into his playstyle very well, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think as well, if speaking a little bit more on Nicholas, if Nicholas goes on and dominates this first FUT Champs Cup event, he's already going up there as one of the best, maybe ever. He finished FIFA 17 in the quarterfinals, I believe, in the grand finals. In my opinion, he was the best player across FIFA 18 as a whole. And if he starts FIFA 19 on fire and does some of the stuff that we've seen him do previously at events, like at Amsterdam, where he just walks the entire event, what a signing! What a signing if he does.
And that's why I said
it'd be very interesting to see.
That's why I said competitively, he's a really good signing. Whereas, if you're looking for him to be the face of your organization, right? He doesn't really feel like that kind of player, Desari has an entire nation behind him and has all these fans and speaks really well, gives good interviews, is a very personable guy, where Nicholas is a bit more of a reserved character. So I think, looking at it from that side, maybe not, but competitively, yeah, I totally agree. He's one of the best to ever do it.
And speaking of some of those names, obviously they have qualified for that FUT Champions Cup that will be taking place in December. We don't know where it's going to be yet, of course. Is, believe it or not, an interesting gamer tag. Noxious Bacon, he goes by that. He goes by Jablet Beast Techers. Currently playing under the Envy banner with the Gfinity Elite Series. He's drafted there at this moment in time. He made the LQE that will be taking place in December, and he's made this cup as well. That will be taking place in December. He's had an incredible start to FIFA 19. And I caught up with Jablet to see why everything is going as well as it is. So I'm now lucky enough to be joined by a professional FIFA player currently under the banner at Team Envy with the Gfinity Elite Series. He's qualified for the LQE in December. He's qualified for the FUT Champions Cup 2 as well. It is Josh Ablett, known as Jablet, Noxious Bacon. How you doing, mate?
Doing all right. What about yourself?
Very well indeed, mate. And you've just heard some of the achievements I've listed on FIFA 19. What's going well for you so far, mate?
I don't really know. I used to play 4-2-3-1 last year, and now I'm playing 4-4-2. And the 4-4-2 is doing the job at the moment. So hopefully qualify for some more tournaments, and yeah.
And because it's a funny one, because obviously, I've known you for quite a while now before I got my break, you could say, into commentary as well with Richard. I think we used to occasionally chill in a party chat on Xbox. Since I've spoke to you then, obviously haven't really spoke to each other much since that, but in the last 18 months, you've worked part-time jobs on the side, you've grinded this game, you've grinded competitive FIFA. Now you're getting your rewards right now. How does that feel?
Yeah, I grinded at the end of FIFA 18, and obviously came top of the Gfinity Elite Series Challenger, and obviously Envy took me up, and yeah, obviously just got to keep grinding, and hopefully it'll pay off.
And obviously you've achieved quite a bit right now. You're looking forward to these events. Have you just been able to click with FIFA 19? Is that the difference? With the game, you've just been able to click with it, or?
The first 2 weeks of FIFA 19. It's a completely different game to any other FIFA. I think you got to adjust to this game, and when you've adjusted to the game, I think you will like it.
And how has your family been seeing the fact of, I remember when we spoke before that you were on the verge of going to a tournament in Belgium, the EGO, that there was a mix up there and you couldn't go in the end, but now you're going to be going to obviously when it's confirmed the location of the LQE to the public, and of course when the location's confirmed for the Cup 2 in December, you're looking forward to that? You're travelling finally.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully I'll do well with both events and try and rack up as many points if I can to try and qualify for the playoffs.
And how's it been playing under that Team Envy banner with the 2v2 at Gfinity?
Yeah, it's been good. 2v2 and Gfinity is completely different to 1v1, obviously. I do like 2v2, but it's completely different.
It was £25,000, as we said, to win that one. Just in a last question now, to anyone out there that wants to be in your shoes right now, that I know maybe 12 months ago you were looking at other people in competitive FIFA and you're going, right, I want to be in your shoes. What is it to take you to that next step? Is it just grinding the game? Is it a good attitude? What is it?
Just grind the game and then don't moan when you lose. Learn from when you do lose, because you will take a lot of losses. You will take a lot, yeah. Just grind and what other pro players do, put that into your game and find the formation for you. What works best for you? Just go for it.
That's fair enough to say, and as Richard would always say, it's never losses, it's lessons. And a massive thank you, Josh, for coming on to the FUT Champions podcast. All the best for FIFA 19. Hopefully, you can get yourself some points on the board at that LQE.
Yeah, thank you. Really do appreciate it. And hopefully do well at the LQE and the FUT Champs too. And hopefully qualify for some more tournaments.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brandon, there, hearing from Jablet. Hopefully Envy can carry on this fantastic streak they've had at Gfinity. And Colin, I want to speak to you a little bit about Gfinity, because we've seen a couple of the teams almost not really that interested, it seemed. You've seen some teams that are just unbelievable so far, Man City being one that comes to mind, their 2v2 roster's been very, very good. And then other teams have almost come up and said, yeah, we're not really practicing. All his focus is on the qualifiers that are taking place. How important is it as a team manager to be able to get into your players that you've got to be able to spread your time? Or would you say, look, these prioritise events, these events are more important than others?
I mean, I think every organization has their internal priorities about, which events are the most important or which ones you should focus the most on. I think Gfinity is a special one for us, obviously, because we're the defending champions there. So obviously we're going to commit some time to it. But when you look at, the amount of events that we have to prepare for, the kind of period of time in which it's falling, where I think pretty much every single week that we have Gfinity, we also have a qualifier for either an LQE or for a Champions Cup. So it's definitely been tough. We're trying to balance our time as best as we can, and I think every team's trying to do that. Any team that tells you that, all week they're, putting 20 hours a week into 2v2 is lying to you. But I think that a lot of the success that you've seen come from a lot of the Gfinity teams is just there's kind of natural chemistry that's coming between some of the teams, which I think that, for example, we've struggled a bit with, where, for example, Zach and Ranners, I think individually are very good players. I just think together they don't mesh very well. And I think you've seen a lot of that where you've had two very good players that just haven't performed necessarily the best. For example, Shalry came in as a sub, and him and Ryan seem to be a really good duo. But maybe individually, you'd probably say Ryan is better than Shalry, right? So I think it's interesting to see kind of how things are working out, and we're still experimenting with which duos are working the best for us. Fortunately, we were able to finally grab some points last week, but I think it'll be interesting, especially with playoffs this season all being on one day. I think it's pretty much just going to come down to who can play the best on the day and who has the best chemistry at that point of the season.
Yeah, because it must be said, obviously, there's still £25,000 up for grabs for that event. Not part of the global series this year is Gfinity. However, another external event, such as that West Ham Cup that is taking place this weekend, that me and Richard are very happy to say that we will be at. I know some of your players will be there as well, Colin. I know it's going to be a bit of a tough one because an LQE is taking place this weekend and that tournament with £10,000 to the winner. How are you going to go about that one right now?
Well, I think fortunately, the players that qualified were vocal enough to help West Ham understand the importance of the qualifiers. So they've made basically stations available for us actually at the event that we can play at to play qualifiers during the event as well. So I think it'll be interesting because it's day 2 as well of the qualifier. Will be the day that the West Ham Cup is going on, so it'll be like the knockout games. So it'll definitely be interesting to be basically balancing a live event while you're also balancing qualifiers, because also you would probably say the gameplay might be a bit different offline as well as online. But I think it's just part of the season, right? It's a really, really busy season, and we'd rather have this than have one event a month. So
yeah, for sure. And fair play, of course, to West Ham for understanding that there are these LQEs that need to be played with prize money up for grabs, pro points up for grabs. And speaking of that LQE, that's happening this weekend as well, Saturday to Sunday, Swiss style into the knockouts as always, 32 spots, 16 each console. And that is for the January LQE. Again, we don't know where any of the events are as of yet, but still, they're worth pro points. And it must be said as well, Richard, that EA have been they've been updating us with some competitive, you could say, new enhancements.
Yeah, Brandon, we said it last week. They seem to be really on top of things this year. Do FIFA in terms of the competitive and also the community managers. Corey and Zaro have done a great job. Eliri as well, who's new to the team, very, very vocal on Twitter, which we've been asking for a long time. We've seen surveys that have been rolling out. I'd definitely say follow Corey on Twitter. He's always constantly talking about pitch notes, the surveys that are coming out. You've seen a brand new website just loaded up where you can actually view pretty much the second-by-second updates on the points. So I think Bateson at the minute's got 10 points because he finished in the top 100. I believe Joxan's top right now after his win in Paris. But it's great to see that throughout the year you're going to see constant updates. And one thing that we wanted a little bit more transparency on, if anything, was the disciplinary updates. EA on the 13th of November, so this is 2 days before we're recording this, rolled out a brand new update with the sanctioned, for the players sanctioned for the EA events. That was Black Legend, FaZe TaS and Zadie. It goes into detail why each player was suspended, how long they were suspended for. So for example, TaS here, it says he was suspended until the 12th of November. It says why he got suspended, and then it says what he was eligible to compete in. So we've been asking for a long, long time for transparency. This is exactly what they're giving us. It's positive steps, Coach, you got to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw the firestorm basically after Kurt got banned about all of the people saying that it was because of this or it was because of that, and this basically quells all of that because now EA is basically coming out and saying this is the exact line of our code of conduct where they have violated, and this is how long that they are banned for it. And none of these are like bans for the entire year. It's usually like 2 to 3 events maybe that they're being disciplined for. So there's still room for them to continue to qualify. Like we said in past podcasts, like you go out, you win one event, right, and you're probably at playoffs anyways. So I think it's some lessons being learned for some players, and hopefully in the future they don't make the same mistakes.
It's not the Wild West like it used to be. I think that's a good way of putting it. Like you're not out here saying derogatory terms on Twitter. You can't be sending PSN messages or Xbox messages, which pros have in the past. I think it's very clear that EA, and if you ask the players themselves, a lot of the players would agree with this, that they want it to be moving forward in a professional manner. If pros want more events and they want more prize money up for grabs, they have to act in a more professional manner, and that's what EA is trying to roll out. And I think it's only for the better, if anything, because if you like when the Kurt drama going off, for example, if you went on Twitter and just typed in FIFA 19, you almost got a negative connotation as soon as you typed them words in. So for EA to be implementing these positive changes and almost trying to just get the community back on side, which I think they are doing slowly but surely, I think it is a positive. Like, you can't put a negative spin on this. There's nothing really bad to say about it.
And as we were saying, obviously, Colin, you are obviously a FIFA team manager at Roma and Fnatic. When you're seeing updates like this and you're seeing, what players are exactly being told of, can you obviously, I know you can't obviously find out exactly what your players are thinking of this, but are some of your players thinking, right, we need to kind of understand that we can't really be messing about to the level, or giving our thoughts or expressing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just we're holding ourselves to higher standards. We talked about this last week when we kind of shortly discussed the task situation, but I think it's just higher standards, and when everyone starts acting as professional as they should, and as we're starting to see people act, that's when you'll get those, bigger sponsors. That's when you'll get more fans coming to the space. That's when you'll get a lot more of the traditional media and a lot more of the traditional sports people coming in that will take the esport a little bit more seriously. It's just EA's doing the right things.
And a player who's always respectful and is always very professional is Envy. I like to call him their captain, Jazz. I caught up with him just before Gfinity this past week to get his thoughts on the FIFA 19 season so far. So Jazz, catching up with you now, you're one of the most respected pros, I would say, in the FIFA scene at the minute. You don't really get into a lot of beef on Twitter. You try and bring a more light-hearted feel towards FIFA. Well, that's something that you set out with when you emerged onto the FIFA scene, or is that just your personality in general? Do you feel?
I feel that I don't really need to get involved too much in public disagreements and people always atting each other stuff. I feel there's no need. I focus on trying to succeed in the game. That's more important to me. Maybe once I've done something, accomplished something on scene, then I'll be able to actually send shots, but right now I stay away from all that sort of stuff, yeah.
And FIFA 18, I would say for you, was very successful. You were the only English PS4 player at the playoffs. Did you feel a little bit of pressure representing England? Almost?
Well, yeah, of course, being the only one there, not having anyone from back home there with you, it was quite scary, but, you have to get the nerves out, you have to adjust and, make sure you're playing your game well. And but it was weird being the only English one, because I qualified for Manchester before that and everyone was there, Shells, Tom, Eddie, Danny Taylor, everyone was pretty much there. So it was weird being the only one there in Amsterdam.
And how has FIFA 19 been for you so far? You've, I say you're captain of Team Envy, in my opinion, now that Icevogel has moved on. How's FIFA 19 been so far? We're probably 10 weeks into the game cycle.
I'd say it's been a slow start, but I'm finding my feet now. At the same time, it has been a slow start, but I've not invested as much as most of the pros. The people have put in ridiculous amounts, like 5-6 grand. I've put in £500. I made the best of what I can with that. And but I had a slow start. First 2 qualifiers, I did struggle, but this one previous one that's gone up, I did qualify. Felt confident going into it, and even with it pretty much being out-teamed every game, I felt confident with the players I've got, and that's what I believe it's all about. If you keep making excuses about your team and stuff, you're not going to really succeed. But if you just get on with it, then it's a lot less pressure.
And that surely gives you more confidence as well, knowing that you're qualifying with a lesser team. When you get to that event and it's unlocked account, you can go ham. You can use the R9, you can use the ridiculous players, yeah.
100%. Like last year, I qualified for 2 events, and the best I've done was got top 32. I feel like this year's my time to kick on and, really establish myself as one of the best players. That's what I hope to do. I believe I can, and hopefully, especially when it's level playing field now. At home, I'm out of teams almost every game. But when it's there, it's going to be a level playing field. Hopefully, that's good for me. Yeah.
Well, I hope FIFA 19 is very successful for you, and thank you for joining us on the podcast.
No worries, mate. Anytime.
Thank you to Jazz there for that great interview, and we're nearing the final stretch of the podcast. We want to hear your views. Is there anybody that you're dying to hear on the podcast, apart from myself and Kojo? Is there any questions that you want answered? Be sure to hit up the FUT Champs pod across all social medias that we are available on. And Colin, I've got a question for you. Dream guest for the FUT Champs podcast?
I mean, I think if we're thinking about dream guests, one person I would definitely want to have on is the most successful American FIFA player of all time, which is Nenad Stojkovic, obviously a world champion from 2010 and top 8 from 2011. I think it would just be interesting to hear kind of his view of the progression of the game since he's been around for so long, almost 10 years of competitive FIFA. So it'd be interesting to see what he thinks about, where they were back then, where we are now, and, what he kind of sees as the next step for the game.
Yeah, great answer there, Colin. Coming over to you, Brandon. What about yours?
I think you've got to look at the FIFA gods or the FIFA Hall of Fame for competitive wise. You've got to be looking at someone like Bruce Granick. I know I've tried to speak to him at a few events. His English isn't the best. However, obviously played across both virtual football games, a 4-time winner, a 4-time champion, but 3 times on FIFA. ESWC, he won in 2006. FIFA Interactive World Cup 2009, ESWC in 2012, FIFA Interactive World Cup in 2013. Now he works in the production side of things. It'd be good to see as well. Of course, he does follow the Liga 1 over there as well, the virtual one of those. So it'd just be good as well, similar to Colin, to see the progression of how FIFA Esports has gone, especially when we've gone from $20,000 to $200,000 last year, and it's just great to see the progressions that we have. What about yourself, Richard?
Yeah, great answer there, Brandon. Bruce Granick, one of the legends of the game, you could say. I'm sure if we could get a translator in, maybe someone like Abdu. That would be a great podcast, hearing his stories throughout the years. I think someone who I'd love to get on is Jonathan Skudink. He used to work for Gallowfields. He was I believe he was the person who was in charge of getting the players to the grand final, like booking hotels, getting flights sorted. The Felix almost now part of the team at the esports company. They always run the grand finals. They do a great job every single year. And I just think he's been running it for almost 10 years now. He's been to some fantastic countries. We got the chance to spend quite a long time with him in Los Angeles last summer. And just hearing some of the stories that he had where he'd been almost scoping out places for the grand final, it's just fascinating. Hearing all the work that goes into these big grand final events. I just think that would be a great podcast.
It's good to see that those are some of our dream guests for potentially a future podcast. But as Richard was saying, please do get in touch with us, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, via our podcast website, #FUT Champions Podcast. We want to hear from you guys of what guests you want us to have on, the talking points for future episodes. And again, a massive thank you to Jablet and MV Jazz for coming on, talking to us about their start to FIFA 19 so far. They've been smashing it, both of them. And Colin, another LQE this weekend, as we did speak about, and obviously the West Ham tournament. You boys looking forward to it?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a busy weekend, but we're excited to finally get to our first 1v1 LAN of the season with the West Ham Cup, and do our best to try and qualify for that LQE in January.
And Richard, obviously we're going to be back on the commentary desk. We're looking forward to it. One of our first big events, you could say, of FIFA 19. We're going to be at the London Stadium, the Olympic Park. You looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm getting to commentate. I'm also getting to work alongside Spencer FC again. So fantastic day it should be at the Olympic Stadium. Get an international break as well, so we don't have to go through and actually watch West Ham, which is always a positive as well.
Well, I do get to miss Andy Carroll. Obviously, a bit of a private joke. If you know, you know. But I'll leave it there for this podcast for this week. Again, if you've watched it all the way through, a massive thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please drop us a follow, whether it's on Instagram or on Twitter. And again, please let us know what you want a future episode to be based upon. Thank you ever so much for watching, as always. Good luck in your LQE. Good luck in your weekend league. And yeah, enjoy the international break. Enjoy the stream on Sunday if you do watch the West Ham Esports Cup. And until the next podcast, we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.